On this week's The Next Interview with our host Doland White, you'll hear Wes Dudley explain exactly how leaders build trust inside high-pressure customer experience teams without sacrificing accountability or performance. As you listen to this conversation, pay attention to where trust, clarity, or accountability either show up or break down. That's exactly what the Empowerment Blueprint Toolkit helps you assess. It shows you where leadership friction is coming from and gives you a clear path forward. You can grab it in the show notes. Now let's jump in.
Welcome to the Next Interview Show podcast. I'm Doland White, and as the announcer, Liam mentioned as we came through the front door, I am the host of the podcast, and I am always blessed on the podcast to have amazing conversations with great guests, and I'm not expecting anything less than that today. No pressure, by the way. With a gentleman that I've spoken with a couple of times. I'm really looking forward to the conversation. His name is Wes Dudley, and you'll hear me refer to him as Wes as we're going through it. But welcome to the podcast, and just to kind of kick us off with a little gratitude. You could be doing lots of other stuff, and you're going to hang out with me for a half hour or so to talk about leadership and your experience. And I just want to tell you, thank you for doing that. So
you're very welcome. Very excited to be here, Dylan.
Cool. Good to have you. Always fun when we have a chat. So this is the only time I ever really read from a podcast, and it's mostly just because I don't want to mess it up. But Wes is Senior Vice President of Customer Experience at Broad River Retail, which we'll get into what is Broad River Retail a little bit, where he treats customer experience as a leadership system. That's cool, because there could be a miss in customer experience. And he treats it as a leadership system, not just a department. He's led end-to-end journey redesigns that cut return rates in half while strengthening execution and team engagement and alignment. And you're known, I did some research on you. You are known for building trust through clarity, accountability, and strong team identity, including the launch of the CX All-Stars, Customer Experience All-Stars. And your work shows transparency and human-centered leadership that drives real results for both customers and for your teams that deliver that support to customers. So welcome. Again, there you go. That's who you are. I didn't know if you knew that about yourself, but that's what I got.
You taught me some things today, Dylan. I've heard some of that was.
We might be fabricating some of it, but it sounded really good. So
I'm scared where some of this information lives, just so you're aware.
I know. So on that note, just so the guests can have an opportunity to meet you and learn a little bit more about you. You do have such a rich background, and if you wouldn't mind, just take a little bit of time. Love to hear about your journey and your experiences and kind of what brought you to where we are today. And then I got stuff for us to talk about.
Absolutely. I have many years of retail experience. I don't want to say quite how many years, but you can do the math if you add up as I tell you here. But I spent the first 30 years of my career at JCPenney. Majority of that time was in the home office there in Plano, Texas. I did spend some time also up in the Pacific Northwest, leading a couple of districts of salons for JCPenney. I had 29 salons. And during that time, I had 17 different positions. Started out as hourly, moved into management, was excited to continue to grow my career, moving in as a leader, and left JCPenney at a director level. And with that, that's where I got to know your brother that I worked with there, Gary.
Yeah, we'll give him a shameless plug.
We'll give him a plug. And I might go into a little bit of that here in a second. But Gary and I worked together, and he's the one that actually introduced me to Doland, which is why I'm here today. From JCPenney, I went to Ashley Furniture. At Ashley Furniture, I started out as Vice President Customer Experience over both the retail and the B2B side of the business. So it was very interesting learning the furniture side in addition to all the retail experience that I came with. But that time that I had there, I built out a 1,000-seat call center, 750-seat call center, 1,000 people in the Tampa area, all during COVID. and actually was promoted to SVP of customer experience before I left Ashley.
Mm-hmm.
And keep that in mind, Ashley, because you're going to hear about that in a second.
Yeah.
Left Ashley and moved to the Charlotte metro area. And in the Charlotte metro area, I lived up in Mooresville off the lake, which is beautiful up here. But it was about 45 minutes from the foothills, which is where I worked in Taylorsville for a company called Mitchell Gold Bob Williams. If you have not heard of them, they are a high-end luxury made-to-order furniture. So I
Mm-hmm.
took my furniture experience and kind of expanded on it. And something I did not have in my resume was high-end,
Yeah, yeah.
which loved every minute of it. Was there a year and was having some conversation with the owners of Broad River, who I happen to know from my time at Ashley because Broad River is the largest licensee of Ashley Furniture. Um,
Yeah.
with that, I am now SVP of Customer Experience, and I've been there just over 3 years, 3.5 years.
Yeah.
And I lead both the customer experience team, and I have also led the retail operations team in the past. So, continue to enjoy what I'm doing there. And as Dola mentioned, carving out the customer experience journey as well as people process technology roadmaps and how we can take some of this information and make sure that our technology stays humanized as we implement.
Yeah. I think that's man, we only have like a half hour. So I've already got like 9 things written down here. Uh,
Great.
but and I started with notes over here and I'm going to blow those off and go right to what I got here. I love that story, Wes, because I think one of the things that happens in a career, and I love that trajectory, with us having spoken in the past a little bit about kind of your growth in the industry and where you go. And what attracted me to the conversation and where I'm focusing on leadership is some of the things that we've talked about previously and some of the things you just hinted. So we'll explore them. But I kind of want to start with, when you're in, let's go way back to JCPenney.
Mhm.
And JCPenney in the heyday, right? Because their heyday has ebbed and waned over years now as the industry has changed.
Yes.
But in the heyday, JCPenney that's the place. And as you're moving, one of the things that I think would be really interesting is you've got a really solid foundation in leadership, and you went from manager to leader, and that's really two different animals inside of any organization. So I'm really kind of curious on your insights because I think there are people in my audience that are in that mode of I'm a manager, my eye is on leader. I don't necessarily know what that means and what things I got to go learn and what I'm going to discover when I get there. So I'm kind of curious in your insights about that jump that you went from here to here and kind of what you took out of that.
Yeah. I think that the difference that, I really have learned over the years between manager and leader is a manager is really, giving direction, exactly what they expect you to do. And, when I was in management at JCPenney, I didn't have any direct reports at the time. I was entry level management and I was managing projects or managing different scenarios that I was working on.
Sure.
And one thing that I learned very clearly is you had both managers and leaders. And managers were, here's what you got to do, here's how you're going to go do it. And they were set in their ways.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
A leader, and I learned this from some of my best mentors out there, a leader really teaches you to understand what needs to be done and you guide your team to be able to do that, but you don't tell them to go how to go accomplish it. You're there providing them the guidance, providing them the assistance.
Sure.
But with all that, it's one that I think I've seen these on the cartoon things on LinkedIn that you have somebody at the top of the hill and a manager is at the top and pulling you with them, pulling them up. And a leader is behind you, pushing you along the way. And that's really how I've adapted my leadership style is wanting to make sure that I am, I'm trying to find the right word here, that I am providing the ability to go own it for them, and I am setting them up for success, but
Mhm.
then I'm giving the autonomy to them to go run with it and either get it accomplished or fail at it. If they failed at it, did they learn something? And if they
Yeah.
continue to fail, then you got another conversation. You got to hold that accountability. But
Sure.
you really want them to be successful because you got to be able to have that next level leader that you can turn things over to.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. And I think that's lost on I love your definition kind of between the two, right? The leaders at the top and they're pulling and or I'm sorry, the managers at the top and they're pulling and the leaders at the bottom pushing. And I kind of love that. There's the old story about Sisyphus, right? When you're pushing that rock up the hill every day and rolling it down and doing it, doing it again for eternity. And as a leader, it's really that team that you build, otherwise, so that you're not pushing that rock all by yourself, which is kind of connected into the whole management role.
Yes.
When you were so as you were kind of making that shift, right, from manager to leader, and then obviously your role began to grow, inside of JCPenney. I'm really kind of curious about, the lessons that you kind of, as you became that leader that learned the lesson about, supporting people and pushing your team, kind of about building trust, and then, having authenticity, right? Authentic trust, right? There's a different moment when people say, "Hey, just trust me." And we automatically as humans recoil and go, yeah, maybe not so much. Um, so I'm kind of curious on your insights on, that authentic nature of building trust, and then we'll get into a couple other stuff.
Yeah. And it all does go back to the foundation of JCPenney. I mean, it does start there, and I will start with that, but I'll tell you how it's grown since.
Yeah.
Um, when I was at JCPenney and call centers, my background, from a standpoint in my last 5 or 6 years of my career there at JCPenney and has been ever since. And when I would go out to our sites, I would do roundtables with our team because I wanted them, one, to know who I am. Because if there was problems, I want to make sure that my door was open for them. And,
Sure.
I didn't get to do many one-on-ones because we had, at uh, peak times for our peak time of the year, we had about 2,600 agents. And, so one-on-ones were almost impossible to do, but I was able to do those roundtables and gather information and at the same time let them have a voice, but it helped them understand that they could trust me. And as I took that on, getting to Ashley, um, again, I was able to do that with my leaders, but the one-on-ones, but I wasn't able to do one-on-ones with my team. So I continued that roundtable scenario there. And then as I moved into smaller companies like Mitchell Gold and also here at Broad River,
Yeah.
now, first thing I did when I joined the team, a one-on-one with every single person on my team and give them 30 minutes. What's on your mind? What's working? What's not working? How can I support you? Because again, that builds the trust that they can trust that you're going to help them in a situation.
Mm-hmm.
I have kind of elevated that to bring that all back around, kind of elevated that here at Broad River, that I'm also doing skip levels with my next level leaders. So my directors that report to me, I meet with them on a monthly, weekly basis. But my skip levels with my next level leaders, I am meeting with them on a quarterly basis. And, my team is all work from home. So with that, I will go have lunch or coffee or whatever in their area, and spend an hour or two talking through things and how are they doing and getting to know them and them getting to know me. And it builds a different relationship, which is what's needed for the foundation for success.
Yeah. I really like that. I think there's a way I define business when I talk with any leader. It's a business, a company is merely a collection of people in relationships.
Very true.
Because
Very true.
and we're all moving toward that. Hopefully the organization is moving towards and it's going to ebb and flow, right? We're all moving towards an outcome that we've established as and there's different outcomes. And there's also a worthy ideal, right? That the organization, there's for the sake of what we do these things.
It's interesting you said that. I'm gonna stop. I'm gonna say one thing.
Yeah.
If you don't mind.
Yeah, go ahead.
One thing, it's also how you build your culture. And
Love that.
here at Broad River, we're not employees, we're not associates, we're all memory makers. Our goal is to furnish life's best memories, both for our customers and our internal memory makers. And that's how culture starts. That's how you start to build that framework of, not just the trust piece of it, but now peer-to-peer departments and all the other memory makers that we have.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. And I think one of my favorite things is whenever and this happens infrequently, but I get to do it when I catch people in this, which is if a couple of years ago, I went to a car dealership and was talking to an individual there, and behind them was their core value on the wall. And I was looking at it, and I kind of looked at the person, and I said, "Hey, I see you got your core values." "Yeah, we have core values." And I said, "Tell me them." And it was cricket. And it was that long pregnant pause. It was kind of like, well, and then, no, don't turn around. So you should just trust me. Perhaps you might want to commit them to, memory, which commitments of art. But I love that's why I wanted to go back at you just to touch on, and leaders, as you're listening to this, on your device that you're listening to, you're probably listening on a mobile device. There's a rewind button. Go back like 60 seconds and listen to what Wes was talking about, because it's really important around, you said it without definition, which is we're all memory makers, which is the importance to know who you are and who your team is, that we're not employees. We're not, there's hierarchy and there's all this stuff, but knowing that you're all memory makers and you're participating, each person participates in something of value. That's a very important topic, leaders.
I can add one more piece to that.
Do. Yeah.
Purpose starts with identity.
Yeah.
And we don't refer to our stores with store numbers. We don't refer to our departments by the full department. We all have an identity. For instance, mentioned CX All-Stars in my opening.
Yes.
Our identity. The customer experience team or CX All-Stars. And we play that game of baseball, meaning that there are weekly hits that they then, get the runs for. We give year-end prizes based on the top 10 to kind of make that big team, plus our rookie of the year. We talk about everything to do with our CX All-Stars and everything that we do. And even our titles go back into Customer Experience Advisor. A CXA is who our entry level is, all the way to our Customer Experience Specialist. All this fits into what are we looking at there. And then we have our coaches that are our leaders of our team, our supervisors, our managers and such.
Yeah, I love that. So it's aligned, not only top to bottom, but left to right.
Yes.
So one of the things I wanted to kind of, and thank you for the conversation around trust, because I think that's a really important conversation. And many times people have that you said this in passing around open door, and there's a lot of phrases like, "Oh, I have an open door," and no, there's no, put it in the suggestion box. Very first thing, it's the first thing. One of the first things I tell any business is just if you have a suggestion box, put it away. Just stop. Go ask people. Don't just go ask.
You got it.
So what I'm curious about is, in any business, there's pressure, and real or perceived, and most pressures are perceived because we make up our own stories. And pressures go from bottom up, top down, vendors in, customers in, and pressures occur. One of the unique things around customer experience, having been around that business for a while myself, is how do you, with your team, I'll add a preamble, and sorry, leaders, for talking longer than I need to, but the preamble is, when I work with my customer service organizations as a CEO or COO in my roles was to remind them that they're tip of the spear, that they are, people are going to buy whatever they buy, whatever product, service, and they generally people buy not just to have something, but for the experience. And so how do you, when you're working with your team, how do you help the organization, or how did you establish the organization and the mindset that, because customer service and customer experience is live fire, and there's different kinds of live fire. There's heat, there's cool, there's having to pull it out of people, and a lot of times it can be misconstrued as personal, or misunderstand kind of what the customers go to. And part of that happens to build into communication and build in trust with the team that they can do it. How do you align that organization so that they're focused on that experience? Because you've got some really neat accomplishments in your background, not fabricating, that really lean into building a cohesive team that's focused on that memory maker experience that you talk about. How do you kind of do that and then keep it on the rails? So it's really two questions.
Yeah, I think from the building up the team, it's something that you have to, again, be honest from the get-go. And when I say that, um, when you're recruiting, you got to tell them we're an escalation call center. You have to tell them what they're going to be dealing with. You got to give them examples, because if you're just trying to hire to get somebody to answer the phones, there's not many call centers that's what they do. I mean, most are dealing with some type of escalated situation, especially in this day of AI, this day and age of AI.
Right.
The other part, speaking of AI, is you've got to be really upfront and honest with them at what you're intending to do with AI, because and I'm kind of probably getting too far off the question, but I'm gonna go this route.
We'll come back to it, but I want to AI is on my bucket list for today.
So I think it's important as well with AI. Maybe go back. There's so many companies today with AI that they hear it's a buzzword, and they're pushing, and they're like, we got to implement AI. It's going to reduce our staffing. It's going to make our customer experience better. It's going to do all these things, but they don't have a plan. And if you don't start with a plan, you're never going to be successful with your implementation. And part of that plan, kind of rolling this back in, is talking to your front line so that they know from that whole change management side, this is what we're doing. We did not put AI in at Broad River to be able to just replace a human. What we've done is, how can we assist our customers and allow them, if they want to have self-serve options, or if they want to be able to get answers without having to speak to someone, we're building up on that. But if they want to speak to a human, we get them to a human. We want to make sure they have a voice-to-voice conversation, because again, most customers, either they want to go that route or they don't want to go that route. There's not many in between that want to go both routes.
Yeah. I love that. And I think that's a one I wrote down a few moments ago, Wes, when you were talking, you said something in passing, the integration of tech and people. And I think it's in a lot of organizations, leaders have a tendency to not think of an integrative solution. It's I'm going to do AI and that excludes this, or I'm going to do people and it excludes that. And it really is an integrative assistance. And people will want to do something. There's this guy that I know, his name is Gary, by the way. And one time we were chatting, and happens to be my youngest brother, but we were chatting, and we were talking about his business, and when he ran services and stuff and things that he was working on. And he said something that caught my ear that I hadn't really thought of, which is give people the channel that they want to go to, not the channel you want them to take.
You're absolutely right. And part of that is determining, what does that roadmap look like? Because you got to have both options as part of that roadmap.
So how do you figure? So I'm a leader and I'm listening to this going, that sounds really cool, guys. Sounds like you know what you're talking about. I have no idea what the hell you're talking about. So how do you figure that out? I mean, what's the, so how do you identify how you serve your customer with it?
Yeah, what, and I'll use the example here at Broad River that I took with my CX All-Star team. And we have a quarterly leadership meeting. And this would have been 3 years ago-ish. That quarterly leadership meeting, we got the team together and we started customer journey mapping. So we would lay out what was our customer journey, what did that look like, where are our pain points, what do our processes need to be updated, and kind of getting all that in play first. Then once you start to know that, then you can add in where could technology fit in, where could technology assist in these situations. And then from there, it's starting to just understand what technology is out there. Where does it fit into what you're trying to accomplish? It's putting a white page together to understand what your cost and benefit and your analysis, your ROI is. And once you have that, how do we implement what's going to be our payback? And if you're doing it just for a financial payback, you're probably doing it for the wrong reason. You got to be able to do it from a customer payback as well.
Yeah, all right, leaders. That's a 15-second rewind. I love that statement, Wes, because I think there is when we have, I mentioned pressures, right? There's a downward pressure. Downward pressure is board, CXO, blah, blah, blah. And that generally there's three hinges that swing those decisions: margin, revenue, EBITDA, right? There's stuff that pushes those things. And your job as the senior vice president is to interpret, how do I apply those into my organization? And what do we do? The bottom pressure is, oh crap, I'm terrified of the fact that we're going to go do AI. So there's a risk in misalignment in culture, which prevents you from answering those top pressures in an ethical and timely manner. When you're working with your team, and you kind of leaned into this, but I want to explore this just a little more with you. I think one of the things that we'd love to hear from you is, as you're going through this planning, who's in the room with you? Who's giving you opinions?
Depends on if you're talking top up bottom up or top down. It's all. So and when I presented this out at what we wanted to do with technology, we did start with the team. We understood where our pain points were, so we understood what we needed to change. And for that part, it was very important to get buy-in from all the leaders on the team. And quite honestly, a lot of the feedback that I got from my one-on-ones weighed into that as well, of why we needed to make change.
Okay.
The other part is financial. We were overpaying for software we were using. And, it was important to understand how we could reduce costs, but improve our functionality and improve our offering and improve our customer experience. All those kind of went in with it. And then it was very easy. You have conversations with your peer department heads, and each of those peer department heads make sure they're aligned. And this is what we want to do. And I got feedback from the entire team with that. And then that feedback went into my white page. So when I was presenting this out to our owners of our company, it was a very easy decision. It was very easy because it's going to be more functionality. It's less money. And these are the benefits that we're going to get, both hard and soft benefit along the way.
Yeah. I like that a lot, because I think there's in leadership, there's that, you talked about this in your definition of management. Management is go do this, don't ask me questions. Here's what we're going to go do, and I'm set in my ways, and call me tomorrow if you have any problems, because if you have problems, I'll find somebody else that can do it. Because we're all, we're all interchangeable. I remember hearing that from a person I worked for, my young careers, way back when my hair was black. Hearing from, I'll just get somebody else. So, okay. Awesome. But as you're doing that, I think the powerful part of that is that opportunity to co-create that solution. So everybody has a say. So there's a component of ownership before you actually go for the yes, which in turn I would imagine that's an influenceable. There's things you got to prove: ROI, you got to prove timeline, you got to prove investment, you got to prove cost, all that. Just tangible things. But I would imagine one of the most powerful things is that influenceable yes, which is, look, we're in, we understand the mission, not just me, but as an organization, we understand it.
Yeah, and I think to that point, Dolan, it's important to understand what your C-suite is looking for, and what your CEO, your COO, your CFO, all those positions,
Mm-hmm.
what is the outcome they're looking for, and at what level do they want to know the information? I've had the luxury of working for some CEOs of very big public companies, very big private companies, and medium-sized private companies.
Sure.
And with that, every CEO has been different at how they want to have the information captured.
That's so
And
true.
and I love, plug for my current CEO, Charlie, because I'm sure he's going to be listening to this at some point. I love the fact,
Yeah.
I love the fact that, with him, he has a very level mind as far as what you present to him. And he's going to ask you 1,000 questions, which is great, because we should know what we're working on and why we want to do this and have all that information. And one, you should never be intimidated by that. It's something that you should have all that information available to you up here so that you can just speak kind of like we're talking now. I don't have anything scripted with my conversation back with you. It's just natural conversation, and you should be able to talk to that with any project that you're putting in front of your CEO.
Yeah, and I think that's really important. It goes back to your statement, I think, Wes, around memory makers. If you understand that vision of what it is that you're trying to accomplish, you can apply this decision towards, am I in alignment with culture? Am I in alignment with the vision? And because if I'm out of alignment, it's not going to go. One thing that you did also said in passing that I want to go back to. See, I'm keeping score. I got it right here. One thing that you said in passing, told you I was going to do that. Is it's also not about the cost. Reducing cost is a component, right? There's only three major CEOs sometimes are a little chagrined when I tell them, look, there's only three things you got to focus on. It's people, time, and money. And if you're kind of thinking beyond that, you're making it way too hard. So let's get down to three things: people, time, and money. And the impact. So there's 1,000 pieces to each of those, but let's go simple. But as you were talking about that, I think one of the things that comes out of this method with co-creating, bringing it to the team, staying in alignment with culture, is the money part is not the goal.
Yeah. I mean, you're absolutely right, Dolan. I think that you've got to stay focused in on what is most important. And for me, it always goes back. And again, this isn't my title, it's the customer experience. And if we're not improving that is our future revenue. If we're not improving that, you're
right.
hurting your future revenue. And I will go back to our overhaul of our CX tech stack that we accomplished. And yeah, there was a huge software savings. I mean, we had about a 25 to 30% software savings.
Sure.
With what we implemented, that's awesome. Which was great, and more functionality, which was even better.
Yeah.
Have we reduced staff? Yeah, staff has attributed down, from that standpoint, because we didn't need as many people as some of those easier questions got answered by technology.
Sure.
But what we realized is our harder questions are written communication versus our verbal communication. So we've had to adjust how our organization is a little bit to accommodate for some of that. And it wasn't about we came in and did any type of layoffs, anything like that. We weren't looking to eliminate positions. We let it happen through natural attrition. And, with that, we're not a lot less than we had, but we are, a handful of of a staff less than we had, which is great to hear also. From a standpoint that we didn't need to be overstaffed for those easier questions.
Yeah.
But as I look into the future, and we're talking a lot now, and it's something I heard at a conference a couple weeks ago very clearly, and the problems have become more complicated, but our KPIs and how we're measuring our goals, we have not adjusted to that. So I've recently had a conversation with my direct reports, because where we were managing to a KPI and making sure that we're hitting those, which whole nother story, because we don't hold full accountability to the frontline associates for those KPIs. We do it through coaching because we want the customer experience to remain.
Sure.
But when you look at the end of the day, our hold times are getting longer, our handle times are getting longer, and that's to be expected because all those easy calls have been reduced, have gone away.
Right.
So
Right.
now it is more complicated.
Yeah, I love that because I think that's and just before I go into my sentence, there was no elegant way out of the podcast, so we're going to go another couple of minutes and then I'll pronounce. Yeah, we're done.
Okay. Okay.
I've yet to find an elegant way to end the podcast, but so it's interesting you see that because I think people miss that, and I don't think it has anything to do with technology or AI but there are seasonality to business. Businesses can be in spring, summer, fall, winter. And in each of those cases, you're measuring for a different outcome. Your KPIs shift. So I love your comment around that, Wes, around the unanticipated or maybe slightly anticipated result of, then why the heck are my call times gone from 3 minutes now to 12? Well, and the reason is because we're doing deeper, more relationship bound call times to solve a more complex problem. Well, it's going to take more time.
Yes.
So your KPI shifts to the right, and that's an acceptable response. And I've seen some of my clients still stay in the day of, well, they need, why isn't it done yet? Well, it's because it can't be. It's you're trying to measure, a horse with an elephant. So
yeah, it's interesting you said that too, because I think that a lot of executives also look at their call center leaders, and they don't understand enough to be driving a decision for them. And really, they've got to dig in and um, be educated with what needs to be accomplished. And I've seen that over and over with people that I talk to in the industry and people that I've mentored in the industry.
right.
And that's typically what it is. They're like, how do I show them what they're asking is you just can't be accomplished. I can't do these things. And it just frustrates them. Well, what's going to happen? They're going to end up leaving. They're going to find a job that is someplace else that sounds better and may or may not be better, but this industry, there's always an open position. There's always a position for that person to go to. And we just need the executives to understand more about what they're doing. And I am lucky that, again, my leaders are very well know what we're doing, why we're doing it, and are well in tune with how things are run.
Yeah, that's exceptional. And I think that's just to harken back to, I'll go back to one kind of final thing that you mentioned earlier that I really appreciated you saying, Wes, was in the hiring process, the clarity in that hiring process, which is the gateway to that, right? And not just hiring for a job, but hiring for the role. So that there's two sides to that, because I think it's one of the things as leaders is and I used to tell this to my teams as a CEO, I would tell them is there's really two things you're hoping for. One, you're hoping that I'm guessing well, and that at least 50% of my ideas are good ideas, and 50% of those work. So let's just ground ourselves there that I'm human and I'm going to screw some stuff up. That's my job as a leader, is to test. I'm going to test the boundaries. And the second part that is that when we bring people into our organization, we're accountable to that individual, but we're accountable past them. We're accountable to families, futures, college, car payments, house payments, vacation. We're accountable beyond that person. So I think it's kind of a long way around the barn, tip of the hat, around when you're building an aligned team that understands the culture, understands the mission, wants to participate. Those who aren't are going to go someplace else, which is great. We want them to succeed someplace else, and that's a high degree of accountability to that team, and that's a deep part of compassionate leadership. That's what leadership really is at its core. So
Yeah, I had a leader once tell me the answer's in the room. And think about that. It's like I am very good. Well,
awesome.
I would say I'm better at that silence and just allowing somebody that uncomfortable thing to answer.
Yeah.
The answer is in the room, and that's where you have to really have your leaders or your team bring that to you and allow them the opportunity to bring that to you before you answer. And I'm not perfect at it, but I'm much better than I was even a year ago.
Yes, we have. I get reminded by my partner of 40 years every now and then that just let me. I'm not asking anybody. I get reminded of that periodically. I'll leave it there.
Yes.
Look, I want to be respectful of your time today because I know that you've got appointments and other things you need to go do today. Very, very first thing is in this conversation, leaders, as you're listening to this, and you'll see it in the show notes and you'll see it in my comments, there are nuggets. And I'm going to remind you to listen to this nugget. Listen to the nuggets around integrating tech and people. Listening to the nugget around calm in the line of fire. Listen to Wes's comments around how to create a solution that's not just in benefit to the organization, but benefit for the money part, but benefit to the value and benefit to the teams that integrates everybody together. And there's much, much, much more that we were able to do in like 40 minutes. So I'm grateful for that. So I'm going to close just with just second bit of gratitude. You have, repeat myself, you have deep experience, Wes. And I admire the experience with leading an organization that is that tip of the spear, but maintaining the ability to integrate it in with the other co-leaders and second leaders. I like your skip level approach. Next podcast, skip levels. But thank you for being here, and thank you for being willing in an open and honest manner just to have the conversation, talk about stuff, and share it with the leaders. So grateful. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me, Dylan. It's still a great conversation. I could talk to you the rest of the day.
It has been a lot of fun. All right, leaders, 2 things. Every podcast ends with the same 2 requests. If you found the podcast, listen to the podcast, give it a no, like, share, or follow. It has nothing to do with vanity numbers. It has to do with speaking of technology, how technology works and how the podcast surfaces so that it can be seen and found by other leaders. I got some note the other day, Wes, that I'm in the top 100 in Japan. I don't know why, but apparently in Japan, nice. They like me. All I can say is ikagadesu to the Japanese leaders. And then the second part is, if you know a leader that can learn something from what Wes shared today, share this podcast with them. My personal mission for the podcast is to empower 1 million leaders, and we're on our path to go do that. I can't do that by myself. Wes can't do it by himself. It means that we share the message, we share lessons, and we learn from each other. So share the podcast. And that's my 2 requests for you as listeners. I'm Doland White. I'm the host of the podcast, The Next Interview Show. See you on the next episode. Thank you for being here with me.
Thanks for listening to this week's The Next Interview Show podcast. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast and then take time to turn what you heard here into action.